Okay, so currently I think we are live. I hope so. Yes, I can see us on YouTube already. So welcome to episode 8 of Sitecore Products Tips and Tricks. And as we had Martin as our first speaker last August, now we have Martin again in our episode 8. It's more than half a year later. And Martin will tell us about XM Cloud Forms Builder, which is a very exciting topic for many people who use XM Cloud. So Martin, thank you for being with us, and I give you the floor.
Thank you, Daria. Indeed, I was the first guy here who opened up these sessions, and hopefully not the last one. Today, I'm going to demonstrate your XM Cloud Forms in action. So we'll do some different tips and tricks indeed. First of all, we'll look and familiarize ourselves what is this new product from XM Cloud family, but later we'll try it to combine with some other features. We will try to play it around components builder. We will try to play it around pages. And of course, we will try to glue that all together. So I'm ready. Daria, are we ready to go?
Yeah, we are ready to go. I will just tell for everybody who is watching that you are very welcome to write questions in the live chat or in the comments after the presentation if you are watching this in recording. So don't forget that you have this possibility, and we will hopefully have some time left at the end for questions. So yeah, Martin, I give you the floor, and I'm going to share your screen. So we will disappear for a while, and you will only see the screen.
Great, awesome. So welcome everyone. This is XM Cloud Portal. Actually, it's called Sitecore Cloud Portal. We see all the applications available here. Today, we are interested in XM Cloud. Now we see this new tenant. It's called Forms, something you have never seen before. With that in mind, let's click and see what it gives us. Okay, so this is main screen of the Forms Builder. Basically, you see the table that lists all the available forms. And you also see some metadata. You see its status. There are different status. Currently, you see active and draft. You can also add labels to the forms. You can also do some meaningful things. For example, you can delete the form, which I'll do now, but I find it very interesting that you cannot delete active forms. You can only delete draft forms, which I have just done. Also, you can filter, you can do some other selections, you can search, and of course you can create new form and go on from here. So let's give it some meaningful name. I call it breakfast order. Just something that comes into my mind because I ordered a breakfast. And let's see what we have here. All right, so this is the main interface of editor. That's how Forms Editor looks when you open it. What we see here is left-hand side, we see 3 tabs. The first is for layout. It already has some predefined set of layouts, which you can drag and drop to the main canvas. And that gives you exactly what you see on this preview. Any custom layout, like 4 columns, 3 columns, maybe uneven proportions, anything you would like to do. You just drag and drop it onto the canvas, and that's how you can start with the forms. If you go to items, you see 3 sections here. There are actually fields. Fields are the elements that collect user input. So something that you want user to provide the data from. and that gathers input and submits it further ahead. Basic are some passive elements, those that do not collect input, like, for example, social media buttons. You can add some image, text, content, whatever you want. And also a section with very intriguing name custom that hints me about a potential possibility of customization so that we can add our custom elements into that library. Something that we don't have here so far, but I really hope to see that. The third tab is for styling. And if you see, there's pretty rich set of styles. You can style almost anything here with the forms. Okay, other than that, the overall interface reminds a page editor. It's done in the very same styled manner as the pages. This is also a separate application. Interesting is that XM Cloud Forms derives not from Sitecore Forms, rather than it derives from Sitecore Send product, which also has forms. That has more or less similar functionality, so it was decided that new product will derive from there. There are 5 icons for other things. I'll show you them further ahead in action. What we see here is also the status. Obviously, you start every form in a draft status, save and exit button, and also you can activate it straight away so it becomes active. Similarly to pages, you have back and forth buttons so that any changes you can scroll back. So that's my social buttons. Let's go back from there if I can. Yes, I can. You can clear design. And also you may see this label that prompts us that we have versions here. And the versions are automatically saved. So the last version here was saved 2 minutes ago, now a few seconds ago, because I deleted the canvas. All right. Another interesting thing we see here is template library. And template library allows you to select from different predefined templates. And there is expectation that it will be publicly available so that community can contribute into creating these templates for everyone to share. So what I would like to do is I would like to pick up this template and I'd like to go with it. So I simply do use template. Are you sure you want to use this template for creating a new form? Obviously, yes. Okay, and that's what I get. So now I see this is a 2-column layout. The left column has all these buttons and controls. We also have devices similarly to how Pages application has them. Currently, we have 2 of them. I have mobile view and I also have desktop view. One of the great features Forms Builder has is a multi-page, I would call it wizard, but it's like a multi-page forms. So you can go and add as many pages as you want, but not more than 10. I didn't manage to create more than 10 pages. So let's keep 2 of them. I'll delete this one. And if you see, it's very interesting. I deleted it again. So if I have one page, the button called next, and it actually submits. Let me delete them again. So next, it will submit the form, right? If I add another page, you will see this back button automatically added. That allows you to navigate between the stages or between the pages. So you get back and back and back until you reach the first one. and the final button actually does the submission. All right, so let's see what we have here. We have fields. If I select field, there are meaningful controls here over the field. But what we also see is the right-hand side panel that allows us to customize everything. For example, I may want to replace this white background with, let's make it transparent, if I can. Okay, so it takes the parent color. In my case, it's an image. You can do lots of meaningful things here. You can basically control the entire input from this right-hand side panel. One thing I noticed is that you have checkboxes for making this field hidden, which is good in some case, but you have also required field. Make sure you don't check these two boxes together as I do now, because if you do that, you will face up a hidden element, but at the same time it will be required and it would expect at least some value input, but how can you input the value into hidden element without going into Chrome DevTools? So that is a potential trap. So don't check these two together. Speaking about validation, you have an option for providing regular expression. That alone brings very powerful opportunity for you to validate your input exactly as you would like it to be. For simplicity, you also can limit the character set, like I do 200 characters here. And again, lots of other controls. One would ask me, Martin, if you see styles here, right? And you see also styling here, so what's the difference between these two? I would say that the right-hand side style, and this menu in general, this is a context menu that relates to currently selected element. So I select full name here. Let's say I want to change the background. Or anything. Let's make it red. Okay, that was the color. Font color, field font, border color, field background color. So you get the idea. You basically control anything within this blue perimeter. At the same time, if you change the color here, that will apply to the entire page. So everything you see here will change the color. Okay, let's add a few more fields here. What you can add, you can choose from these different fields. You have specific inputs for email, phone, rather than a generic short text. You can also have long text, date picker, multiple selection, radio button, checkbox and checkbox group. You even have terms and conditions and reCAPTCHA. So what I will do, I will add checkbox group here. We can provide the values from this menu. and so on. Same you can do with select. You can also add option 1, option 2, option 3 in a similar manner like I did before. Let's delete these guys. And I actually want to add reCAPTCHA. Okay, let it be. What we can do here, we can go to preview and see how the form will perform on the actual device. So it will take all my styles which I've done. So you see this is the red color for the input, for the border. You can see how your fields perform. So I expect this to fire a validation error because it was email. Let's do a phone number. And that's exactly what I got. I'm going to the next page with the requirements and reCAPTCHA. And that brings us to a very important moment. It tells us that we have to set up a webhook. A webhook is required to submit the form. And I would like to talk a little bit in more details about webhook and what does webhook play with the XamCloud forms. If you remember web forms for marketers or maybe Sitecore forms that were integrated into Sitecore 9, the way it worked was that you had a dedicated database on a content delivery server, and everything that user submitted into the form ended up in that database. So now with XamCloud, we do not have a content delivery server any longer. And we don't have web database. We don't have any other database on the content delivery side of things. Instead, when we publish the page, it goes to Experience Edge. So the question was, how do we collect the user input and where do we store them? And I think that was a very wise decision by the development team. They decided not to get the storage provider for the XamCloud forms. Instead, they give you the flexibility to decide for yourself rather than create a user interface and create a storage for the form and manage that. Instead of that, they allow you to set up a webhook and pass every piece of data that you collect from the website to whichever system of your choice. The very obvious choice, in my opinion, would be here CDP, because in most cases, that's where you would like to get this data into. But the reason to it, another reason to it, is that compliance. So this form builder does not store any of user captured information. Instead, it pushes it outside to whichever system you choose. That's how it stays compliant. So with that in mind, let's go and set up a webhook. We can do it from here. There is a set of predefined webhooks, pre-existing webhooks, obviously not predefined, that I already have on a system. You can test the webhooks, you can manage webhooks, but let's add a new one. What is webhook? Webhook is basically an HTTP request. This is done to replace an event model in a truly composable nature of Sitecore products. So there are different elements to composable family of products. They sometimes are written with different languages. They are totally isolated from each other. And what if you would like to system A to talk to system B, which are absolutely standalone from each other. This is done with webhooks. So as soon as you want to notify about some change in system A, let it be forms builder in our case, that will send HTTP request to system B, which you define here, and it will carry on all the payload of valuable data, everything that we want to pass. In our case, it will have all the information about every single field from the form that you submitted. It will pass it to external system. So once again, it's just an HTTP request. That means it has URL, and that means it may have some sort of authentication. And if we see, we have quite rich options here. I think that's everything we can handle with authentication. It's provided here. So we have OAuth 2, basic, with login password, we have API key, and we can just go with the simplest way without any authentication. Let's pick this one. I give it a name, and I need to give it URL. So in order to test webhook, I employ something called request bean. There are numerous similar systems on the web, free of charge. You can take any of them. They will do a similar trick. So what they do, they give you this URL, and if I try to reach out this URL, this is what happens. It captures my request, and once I click this request, it will show me everything that is related to this request. All the fields, all the headers, like pretty everything. So let's delete it. And I will be using this webhook. So I set up this URL. Let's do save. Here's my webhook. I'm choosing it. And at this stage, I can test it. But there are a few more things to the form settings. Once the form is submitted, what would you like to do? There are different options. You can do nothing, which is also a valid choice. Other than that, you can redirect to URL. You often see this behavior when you submit a form. It brings you to some page. Or you may just stay on this page and show them the message. We got two messages. One is the successful message, and another is negative message. And of course, this is rich text. You can do lots of things. Let's do it italic. And I'll probably change the color to dark green, like that. So let's test the webhook. It brings us to the familiar preview interface, where I can do some input. Provide a phone number. Go here and click next. So what we see at the next stage, it actually shows us all the fields that we provide. So that's my dummy text for the text, for email, the phone number. It shows me the checkbox group that I selected, beacon menu. Also, from a drop-down, I selected option 2, and there's also reCAPTCHA response. That were the fields, but along with the fields, we can see all the HTTP headers, like x404, date, user agent, like all of that. And once I click submit, it shows me that webhook test successful. And let me see here. There is a request. There is a request. and I immediately see all these fields in my body. Okay, with that in mind, I assume that my form functions okay. And I'm really thankful developers for bringing this test webhook interface, preview interface, because it saves from so many unwanted round trips back and forth from the editor to your actual page to see if it works or maybe change some styles. You don't need to bother that. You see things immediately. And now I'm absolutely happy with the form. Next thing I need to do is to make this form available. So as you see, I'm now in a draft state. So what I want to do, I want to activate the form. So I save the changes and I will confirm the activation. It sends me the message that I will not be able to edit the form after I activate it. And I can still use everything I've done. I just do and duplicate the active form, and then I get a copy of that active form in a draft state where I can do the changes and alter and maybe use this duplicated form if it is better. So let's activate. So here we see breakfast order, 0 views, 0 submissions, active. Let's add label. As I said, we cannot now delete the active form, we can only duplicate it. And of course, we have settings. Okay, so at this stage, we created the form, we activated the form, we tested the form, we know that form actually submits the data to whichever endpoint we provide. So let's do some use for that form. The first thing that comes into my mind is open up page interface and try to drop the form onto the page. So where do I find the forms? I go to components and there is a new section called forms. I open it up and here I see all the activated forms, and that includes my breakfast order. If I drag breakfast order and drop it to a placeholder, I will immediately see it on a page with all the styles, with everything I've done. There is one thing I want to notify you about, is that in order to make that happen, you must be on Next.js SDK, or in other words, Headless SDK version 21.6 or newer. If you try to do that on the legacy versions of SDK, you will see, instead of the form here, you will see a big orange placeholder saying that this component with such ID cannot be found. And basically, it cannot do anything without the recent code that supports form. I'm doing that in cloud. That means you must update your code base and you must redeploy it to the cloud. But I have the latest version, so I'm kind of happy with that. But how will it perform if I go to the legacy experience editor? Let's check it out. That is my page. That is experience editor. And you clearly see the magic somehow works here. I get the form and I get the rest of the page. What's interesting here, if you select the form, you will see this name of component. So what is BYOC wrapper? BYOC stands for bring your own component. And this is how external components work become compatible to Experience Editor. This is how they work. So if you get into more technical details, everything you see in Experience Editor is driven by everything that exists on CM. So that is driven by CM instance of XM Cloud. But the forms, they are coming from total external application. So it does not belong to your Sitecore CM instance. It's nowhere on Earth can be found here on a content tree. It's simply non-existent. So how do we actually make it work? The good news is that you don't need to bother about that. Developers have cared of everything on your behalf. They created this bring your own component. This works in a very similar manner as frontend as a server wrapper works. If you go to this component section, you will see two of them. So frontend as a server wrapper allows you to have components done with the components builder and to make them work right on this page. And bring your own component works with forms, for example, here. But how does it know which form do we take? If we go to component properties, we see component name, and we see form ID parameter. And mine starts with BBB, BBBE, something like that. If I go back to forms and I edit the form, you will see the same identification, BBE. That's my ID of a form. And this is exactly how Experience Editor know which form to allocate into that BYOC wrapper. But once again, if you are non-technical user, you don't need to worry about that. Things will work for you automatically. You just simply do things in the pages, and they will become available here. You can also do that here as well. A little bit more difficult. So if we go to presentation details, we see the same BYOC wrapper with the same component data as we saw it before. And it even has the right name of the component. So that's interesting. But let's go to another level. I will delete form from here, and we'll switch to the components builder. Pages is awesome, but can I do anything with forms from the components builder? Let's check it out. So I will create a new component, give it a name breakfast component with a form, and allocate it to default collection. Okay, now go into editor. We see the canvas. And what if I go and add elements? Among the typical elements as we see them here, as it was before, we now have this external element section. So previously, you just had one external element, which is called component, that allows you to bring your custom React component, which you can register and use from here like a normal component, like a normal of these primitives. You can add your custom component from this component builder. But we now also get the forms here as well. So what I will do, first of all, I'll do some, let's do some heading. Let's make H2 just to introduce the title. So let's add the form to the canvas. right underneath it. So basically that is a wrapper. It says Sitecore form is unconfigured. Exactly in the same manner as you would expect it in the other elements, in the other interfaces. There is a right-hand side menu where you see all the context menu, all the context things. And there are actually forms here. So for some reason, I don't see my breakfast form. I probably need to refresh the interface. And I immediately see my breakfast form. So now we have 6 components. Let's pick it up. Okay. So far, so good. At this stage, I am guessing if we can make a even more power to these forms. As you might remember from my first presentation, we can leverage something called data sources here with the components builder. That's where you plug external data sources and you can map the fields directly to the fields on your primitives here. I don't know if we can map the fields and drop them into this composable form. I did some attempts, but it didn't work for me. I hope that something like that will be available in the future. But for now, I'm happy with everything I've done. So I create this component with a title and actual form, which will be my breakfast order form. I can stage it and I can publish it. Okay, let's go back to Pages and refresh it. Go into Components. We still see our form in the forms, but we also see the default collection which we just made. And within default collection, we see a composable component coming from the components builder, which we also can add here in the same manner. So that brings this composite component that has the title and the form right to the canvas here. Interestingly, that I lost some styles. If you remember, the button was the next button had different style on it. What I can do, just for the curiosity, I can also add a form directly here, so that we can compare them in line. Yes, you see, there's totally different style. So I think there's some outer styles from the page that are preventing this form showing up exactly like that. Maybe some CSS work my developers can do to bypass that. But once again, let's go back to Content Editor and let's open it up in the Experience Editor. And once again, what we see this composite component and we see the form. What is very much interesting is that component that is coming from components builder, it is coming with frontend as a server wrapper, but the form itself comes with bring your own component wrapper because it's kind of embedded in the component. But will it actually work? Let's give it a test. I go to preview mode. try to do this order. I intentionally make a validation error here to see if it works. All right, so let's give it email address. The phone number must follow the format. This is interesting input. It is also a composite input, which embeds the country codes predefined, and you also can enter the number. I struggle to pass the validation with my phone number. And here it works. Maybe this is some bug, I don't know. The phone number validation passed me to the next screen when I embedded the form directly, but when it comes embedded into a component, for some reason I was unable to do that. But let me try again. Let me give it another try. No. So it might be some sort of bug with this validation or something. Okay, let's go on with the form provided directly. I set up Martin. Click next. So now I expect to see my message, and this is exactly in the same style as I made it. I made it italic, if you remember, and I also make it dark green rather than just plain green. So that is, and it also triggered a request to this Webhook Trap. This is my email I provided, this is the phone number, option, name, everything I've done here, as well as the headers. This is probably some sort of glitch or bug where I was unable to do to pass the validation from the embedded component. Let me try once again from the pages. And yes, the same issue. Guys, you have to believe me, it used to work before. I definitely made it work before with the phone number in that particular setup when the form was embedded in the component and component was dropped to either pages or experience editor. It might be some sort of temporal bug. I need to understand what's wrong with it. But so far, so good. This is all my demo I wanted to show you for today. If you got any questions, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. So let's see if we have any questions on the way. If anybody has questions, you are very welcome to ask them in the chat. Let's have a look and wait. If we don't see anything in the chat, I encourage anybody who is watching to ask questions in the comments. And I will let Martin know if there are any questions on our YouTube channel. So yeah, thanks a lot, Martin, for this presentation. I think it is very useful. People will use it as a guideline, basically, to go through all the steps. I think it's very detailed as well. So yeah, do you have any maybe recommendations, any other recommendations for people who are wishing to use forms? Maybe some additional use cases that you have in mind for forms?
It's a very generic question. Same as the use case for the forms, it's pretty much universal. The way we've been given these forms is very flexible. With the forms builder, you can style, you can adjust, you can customize your forms to, I would say, pretty everything you would like it to be. And you can do that with almost no code.
Okay.
Of course,
okay.
sometimes you may come across the glitches like we have here, where my styles was changed and maybe some JavaScript for validation didn't fire. But again, this is, I would call it child sickness, because this product is very new, and you may expect things like that on the early stages of product. But even with that in mind, the product was done absolutely fabulous. We've been waiting for this product for quite a lot, and this wait was for real. It was for reason. One of the things that comes me in mind is that you can create even like very complicated questionnaires, because for the multi-screen you can do up to 10 screens. You can make any detail, like really detailed things. For example, imagine you are in healthcare industry and you want your patient to submit a form, and that is very suitable product, because whichever system you submit data to, forms does not take it. It only passes this data. It's compliant. At the same time, it allows you to make it so much configurable. One thing that I didn't tell you, but which I want to mention, is that as for today, you can make multiple screens, but you cannot make the conditions. So let's say if you want the screen number 1, and then you have screen number 2 and screen number 3. Let's say you want, depending on a drop-down or any like checkbox or any parameter that you enter on the first screen, if you want to go either on second or third form, depending on the input, this is called conditional action. But we don't have them now, unfortunately. This was promised to us on a further stages. This is on roadmap, and I'm really anticipating this feature. Other than that, probably it's really decent and great product.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot for sharing, and really looking forward to its development. I'm pretty sure there will be lots of interesting features introduced in the nearest future. So then we will probably come to you again to announce them and just to see how they work in real life projects. Okay. Thanks a lot, Martin. And we are going to stop at this point. Everybody who has watched, thank you very much for watching, and we welcome your questions. Thanks a lot, Martin, and
Thank you, Daria.
see you